I'm Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert, and I am at the part of my day that I get super excited about. It's talking to amazing leaders and really unraveling who they are. And so I want to welcome Craig Johns to the stage. Craig, welcome. Glad you're here.
Hi, Mitchell. It's great to be talking to you here on a beautiful morning in Australia.
Nice. And we realized with the producer, Brian, myself, we've got, 3 different time zones. I'm excited to have you here. And for our audience, can I just throw it over the fence and say, Craig, who are you?
I'm a small town country kid who grew up on a farm where the nearest neighbor was a mile away in beautiful New Zealand, in a place called Taranaki. And so I, at the time, probably didn't realize how lucky I was in a way, where we had a 2,500 meter mountain right at our back doorstep that was, would be covered in snow, and just had this space to be in your own thoughts and be who you are. So very much a introvert at heart as well. I love my quiet space. So when COVID hit, that was kind of my happy place. Someone who's very, very driven. I love taking on a challenge. I like to see how I can, sort of achieve something, strive for perfection, but no, there's nothing perfect. So have a very much a learning mindset around what is possible and what can we do, but also realizing that, every day you got to keep working at it because there is no end in a way, which is kind of weird coming from a sport background where, in a sport background, you knew where you sit in the world. When it comes to, I suppose, the corporate world and the rest of my life, you don't really know what the end game is most of the time. And so it's just kind of fun to focus on a few things where I can always continue to grow and evolve. I see myself as a global citizen, someone that has lived in 5 countries. I think by the age of 30, I had visited 48. So have quite a global perspective on things. And, from living in New Zealand to Taiwan to Saudi Arabia to Thailand to now living in Australia, every country is very different. And every place you go to, you see different perspectives on the world. And so I love that ability to have an open mind around what is the truth, what does it mean to be a human? Why might someone do this, and just try to understand the mystique and intrigue factor of different cultures and how they do different things and behave in different ways that, may not seem appropriate where I come from, but are natural and appropriate in their world. And so sometimes we kind of forget that in this world where we feel like we need to place our value system or the way we do things on someone else. And we see this with certain leaders in different countries that feel like that something is happening in a different country is not right. But in their country, it is normal, and they actually enjoy that, and they don't feel it. Like, so sometimes people perceive that women in Middle East feel oppressed, that they have to wear the burqa and abaya, or they may not be able to do certain things. But if you talk to them, they actually feel the opposite. They actually feel like they have a lot of freedom, and that things like the Quran, that it was actually kind of a futurist in a leader in a way, in allowing equality across different genders. So sometimes we perceive things through a lens that is rose tinted in a way, that we don't quite see what truly is happening. For me, I am someone who loves to nurture. I have grown up in a service mindset family. My mum is a nurse. My dad worked on a farm, but both of them have heavily been involved in the community or coaching sports teams and doing different things their whole entire life. And so that has been there from day one, and having that nurturing mindset around how can I help other people. And so I like to talk about carrying the torch in a way where, as when you arrive on this planet, you are presented a torch from someone from your family, from your parents. Your mum and dad present you a torch, and your job is to protect that torch. and over time enhance it and leave that torch at a better place when you hand it on to someone else. And so I love the fact that I have a 6-month, baby girl, and it's not about making her the perfect person in the world or anything like that. It is sharing what I have learned through different generations inside my family, but also the other, I suppose, exposures and experiments that I've had around the world to kind of leave her in a better position than maybe what I got handed the torch. And so I'm always in that nurturing mindset. So that probably sums me up.
Man, you kept talking, and I'm like, I kind of like it because I would have asked that question. I would have asked. So let me ask a quick one. And by the way, love that. So you mentioned a 6-month-old, and one of the things you mentioned in the green room ahead of time is you woke up this morning and had a couple chuckles and giggles. I want to make sure that what a cool way to wake up in the morning.
Yeah, I treasure that. Look, it's hard sometimes. Anyone who's had young children or have young children right now will know that your perspective on the world shifts when you have your own children. For most people, it does anyway. Some I'm not so sure, but for many it does. And you realize that you're not the center of attention anymore. The world doesn't exist around you. It's actually this person here that you have the treasure, I suppose, and the pleasure in a way to nurture, mentor, to coach, to teach, to help grow in this world and guide through this world. Is something we need to treasure, because that's our future. If we don't have a future, if we don't nurture the next generations, then what happens when we end up in a nursing home or a rest home, or what happens when we leave, right? So that is our job, is to, as I say, carry the torch. And so I treasure every moment with her. Sometimes you've got conflicts going on where you've got to do some work and things are under pressure, and there are other things happening in this world, or people relying on you to make sure something's done so they can do their job well. But it's just being able to be present in that moment and go, you know what, this is going to be a short time I get to spend with this human being. It's a short exposure to being able to shape the future of humankind in this world. It's only one person, but that one person can each person creates an impact in the world. And so how can we do that? So yeah, whether it's 11 p.m., 1 a.m., 5 a.m., it's never a chore to get up and either put the dummy back in the mouth or put the blanket back on, or if they're awake, feed them and change them, and just see that sparkle in their eye where they love that moment of intimacy with a human being, that connection with someone. And to be really honest, Mitchell, it's no different to the workplace. I think if you listen and observe and kind of just be present when you're with children, it teaches you so much around what it means to actually lead adults and children and around this world. There is a beautiful TED Talk done. I think her name is Molly. I can't remember her last name. She did a TED Talk in Sydney in 2021. 7-year-old girl. It's about 7 minutes long. It is probably one of the best TEDx talks I've ever heard. When you listen to it, you go, gee, you have the wisdom of a 70-year-old and the charm of a beautiful child. But it teaches you a lot about parenting and actually more about leadership. And so if you actually just observe what's going on, you can take away so much around what we need to observe when we are leading other people and shaping people in their lives. Because adults tend to have a way of hiding things a little bit more. Children don't. They expose things really fast. They see it, they show it, they respond in that moment exactly how it is, and it's raw. Whereas adults tend to hide stuff. And so if we're able to observe those cues, we will realize when we are actually not connecting with our people, when we are not present enough, when we're not listening or understanding them well enough and providing what they need to bring out the best in themselves.
It's so fascinating. Thank you for my incremental aha moment. Because a lot of times when I interact with somebody, I think to myself, well, I should point out this one thing because it's so obvious. and sometimes I you know, I don't want to be a quote unquote know-it-all, right? But basically I could say I'm acting childlike. I'm just expressing my thoughts. Yeah, fascinating. You know, by the way, I do agree for those that are parents. It just like overnight, you can't be told what a parent is. You just change, and your ability to be a manager of fellow humans becomes so much better when you're cognizant of bringing in a little person into the world. So I got a question on you carrying the torch. What I'd like you to think about is what tools were you given when you were carrying when you were, you know, essentially handed the torch versus what tools are you going to share to your 6 month old throughout the time until she, whatever time it is that she does, that she stops listening to you before she listens to you again when she gets older. um,
Wow, this is a great question. Never been asked this one. What are the tools? So I think tools that I got given when I was young was a hard work ethic, a drive, a specific drive for something, like being able to see a vision and drive for something, to have that caring, nurturing mindset. You know, I spoke about this at a speech at my mum and dad's 70th combined birthday. So it was the 140th birthday a couple of weeks ago. And I talked about mum. I would describe mum as Mother Teresa. I only heard her swear once, up until my sister's marriage broke up. Then I maybe heard a couple more. But up until that point, I'd only ever heard it once, and that was when a cow kicked her. And so I saw mum as Mother Teresa. My dad, I would talk to as a street fighter. My dad grew up in a kind of a rough group of kids. They were tough. They were taking on the world. And dad was always someone who would protect. He would protect the family. Mum would nurture the family. My dad, and they were always there to service. And when I talk about family, that could be a community, it could be a team, etc. My dad would protect in a way where we probably had to tame him down a little bit from where he was of kind of those earlier rough days when he was a kid, where they probably used to sort stuff out behind the bike sheds with a few knuckles, etc. But he would protect hard, and he was always there for everyone else. And so I love the fact that I have that fighting mindset. I mean, I'm not a physical fighter, but I fight for people. I like to protect people. I like to support people in that way, but I do it in a very calming nature. So I love those aspects there. I think the curious mindset and observation. Actually, I still remember Dad. He always loved not going shopping, but going to the shopping mall, because he loved to just observe people. He was fascinated by people. He was fascinated by behavior. And so that was something that sits with me. And I had a great opportunity when I was in Taiwan, where I changed from working in an international school environment to coaching the national team. The athletes I had been coaching, for whatever reason, the CEO decided on day one when I went into the National Training Center that all those athletes were going with another coach to China for a training camp for 3 months. And I was getting some new athletes who spoke zero English. I had no translator. And I spoke maybe 20 words or 50 words of Chinese at that point. And so that was where I had to coach and lead through the power of observation and body language and gestures. And so that was my greatest learning of communication. So the observation is really good. What would I not share with Aroha and what I was learnt? I think probably just being able to tame the work ethic. I think that's probably the biggest thing. You know, when you are so driven for something, when you're so focused on something, sometimes the blinkers come on in regards to your own energy and what is possible. As an athlete, I was very, very clever at being able to balance both stress loads and being able to train, perform, get better, etc., but also with the recovery needed to be high performing. and the same as a coach. But in the corporate world, I just stay so focused on it that I will work 70, 80 hours a week unless I put boundaries in place. So to me, it's those lessons of energy management. So energy is your number one currency in the world. If you want to have high energy and be able to energize other people and to create energy with other people, you first need to understand how to not only schedule your energy, focus your energy, but also invest in the energy. So I think that is going to be the number one thing that I can share with her.
Love that. By the way, it makes for a really good post. So I just posted and tagged you. Interesting. I lean in the direction. I believe when you were raised, the answer to life, universe, and everything was hard work. Right? That's what we were taught. That was the only answer. And I believe what you're going to end up sharing with your daughter is that there's no such thing as work/life balance. It's simply life balance.
100%.
And so in working with life balance, I love the concept of energy management. Why don't you talk a little bit more? How do you practice that yourself? What does that mean to you?
Good. So when it comes to energy management, like people will think about me going, oh, it's got to be, we need to go out and run a marathon every day. We need to eat super healthy, all that sort of thing. And yes, there is a part of that. Yes, you need the foundations. You do need some exercise. For some, that might be, and for me at this time, for someone who has competed on an international level, is sometimes just a 30-minute walk, because stress layers on top of each other. So mental stress, work stress, family stress, relationship stress, kids, young baby stress. It all layers on top. So you need to realize that if you then go, all right, well, I need to go and do a hard training session in the gym, that actually may not be the best thing for you. Moving is, yes, you need that movement, but sometimes it's not always about working hard. So you need that energy. You need to be able to eat really well. Like, to me, I think if you can eat 85% unprocessed foods in your diet, I think that's a good thing. 15% you can have unprocessed as well, if you like. It's pretty hard to do in these days. But I think if you can focus on the natural foods as much as possible, being able to free your mind. So being able to find a space where you can, like for me, it's swimming or even cycling. I find my mind, I can just free it of everything. Sometimes it's moving location in the house. It is something that allows your mind to just de-stress for a moment. Actually, and this is funny, it's not the healthiest thing in the world, but people that smoke, right, or smoked, have a smoker break every kind of hour to about every hour, some a bit shorter, some a bit longer, before they have a smoker. But what they're doing is they're actually freeing their mind, but they're obviously fueling themselves with the wrong things. So kind of a contradiction, but the concept of that works. And then recovering with purpose. So,
by the way, it's very interesting, right? So when you're a smoker and you take the smoker's break, there is one aspect of that it turns out, like I've got this ring thing that says, oh, get up every hour, right? Because it's checking my biometrics. Same sort of concept. I'm not getting up with a craving for nicotine. I'm getting up because my brain and body needs to walk around and replenish, or maybe take my shoes and socks off and put my feet, ground myself in the actual ground, right?
Yeah. So like when we talk about energy management, so they're baseline, and then we talk about schedule your energy, focus your energy, and invest in your energy. Now, when we talk about scheduling, that is making sure that, say, if you've got a diary, your calendar, etc., that you don't fill up any more than 20% of your working week with meetings. Right. So because you always get spontaneous ones. So you try and keep it at 20%, because you need time to prepare, plan. You need time to do some deep work, etc. Time to deliver maybe, but those actual meeting times, keep it low. So that's a good start for people. But I like the 3-to-1 kind of work to recovery ratio, not work to rest, because rest is part of recovery. Resting means you are sleeping pretty much, or you might be meditating. Recovery could be active or non-active. And so when we look at, and athletes are very good at this, right? So when they plan a lot of their training over a year, a quarter, a month, a week, a day, it is generally based on a 3-to-1. So they'll work hard for 3, then they'll have like 1 recovery. So say they go 3 minutes hard of running, and then they have 1 minute recovery. And so the more intense it is, the more recovery they need. And it's the same as human beings. If you do something super intense, like I do this podcast, it's actually probably going to take more time for me to recover than what it will me doing an hour of emails, because I'm investing a lot of energy in this to help serve the people that are listening to this. But from a mental point of view, we can only work in a high performing state from approximately 45 minutes to an hour before it starts to decline. Now, all you need is between 15 and 20 minutes of active recovery, or even rest if you like, to bring your mental capacity up to a high performing mode and go another 45 minutes. So that's why the Smoko break worked really well from that perspective, because you're stepping out of an environment, going to another environment. You're generally connecting with someone, so there's a social connection, there's a change in conversation. So how can you do that on a daily basis, but also how can you do that throughout the week? I love tradies in Australia, because what they will do is they will work Monday, Tuesday, then Wednesday morning, they will go play golf, or Wednesday afternoon, they play golf, and then they'll work Thursday, Friday, maybe Saturday morning, they have the rest of the weekend off. So they're actually working like a 3-to-1 type sort of work and to recovery mode. If you're in, say, a corporate space, then look at how over, say, a month, you can go the first 3 weeks, you can have a lot more meetings, you maybe travel more, you may be working harder, but then plan the 4th week so that maybe you leave early and go spend time with your children, maybe go to event with them, or schedule less meetings and no travel, so that you're kind of cycling through. Do the same over a year, where you might go sort of 3 months that are quite full on, and then 1 month that you might actually have a holiday, or it might be just, all right, I'm not planning any big projects in here, I need a bit of downtime. And then for those who are even high achievers in this group, then look at how you do this over a career. I've got a wonderful friend, Ann Gripper. She's CEO. She does this really well. She'll work for 5 years, and then she'll take a whole year where she does something else. So she has done her master's in Switzerland 1 year. She cycled around the world another year. She set up a philanthropy another time. But she will tell the employer, I'm only going to work for 5 years. And when I started Speakers Institute Corporate, I said to Sam, by the way, after year 5, I am going to take 6 to 12 months off. And so what actually happens, and this is a good lesson for everyone, because I have already set that intention, it means I will establish the business and set it up so it can run by itself without me. If I wait till year 4.5 and then go, oh, by the way, business partner, I'm taking next year off and I'm not going to be working, the business is not going to be ready, and neither am I. So I'm then going to be in this tension struggle of trying to have time off and work, or the company be struggling and fighting. So there's a good lesson to actually planning in life certain things like your way you recover. Focusing your energy, if you really want to achieve something well and not be mediocre, then you need absolute clarity on what your goal is or what your vision is. Why are Olympic gold medalists so good at what they do? Because they have absolute clarity, maybe 8 to 12, even 16, 20 years beforehand on, I'm standing on that medal dais at the Olympics in Brisbane in 2032 with a gold medal around my neck. I know what that is. Now, what it does when you have absolute clarity on your vision or your goal, it allows you to say no. When you don't have clarity, you say yes to everything, and everything becomes mediocre because you're trying to do too many things. When you have absolute clarity, you say no. And from an athlete perspective, no to alcohol, no to parties, no to the junk food, no to relationships or social things that distract you from being in a positive, in the right mindset. Sometimes they narrow it too much, right? They need a support network around. So That's the role of the coach or the mentor, to make sure they still have the supporting stuff around them. And so, how are you going to focus your energy for a meeting? Or for me, for this podcast, I needed to think beforehand, what was the intention? What energy do I need to bring to make sure that as you as listeners are engaged and you are learning? So I have to think about that. So how do you focus your energy? And then investing in your energy is a lot around creating boundaries. So it's just hard when you work from home. But what is the boundary? Is it a time? Is it when the door shuts to your office? Is it when you flip the laptop down? What is it that distinguishes between work and home life? Right? So they're both life, by the way. Everything you do in this world 24/7 is life. So what are you doing from work to being with family or going to exercise or whatever it may be? To creating those boundaries, even things like digital detox in a way. So I need to get back to this. I was very, very good at making sure that in the bedroom, there was no digital devices. There was no checking the phone while I'm lying in bed. It was, this is my zone to sleep. I don't leave.
By the way, got that one. Got it.
Good.
Not everything you talked about I'm doing. Got that one.
To even things like this as well, if you come home from work and you put the laptop on the table, you have now contaminated the eating in the home space. You've now put work into home space. So making sure that when you go from one thing in your life to another, that you're able to separate those where needed. And that's super important. Don't contaminate the space. So that's hopefully a valuable overview of why energy is the number one currency as human beings.
No, this was great. It was great. First, I'm just going to point out, you spoke, no one would think you're an introvert, right? Based on how you show up, right? That said, you speak like an introvert, because whereas this is energy drain for you, and by the way, you're doing spectacular. For me, this is an energy builder. Like, what put me on calls all day long, and I'm at the end of the day, I'm more pumped than I was before. Extrovert, right? So we're different that way. The way you answered the energy question was so valuable for so many people, and I would like to encourage you, if you're having, I agree with you, it's not this work-life balance, it's just life balance. And if you're having an issue, if you're working from home and you're having issues there, having opportunities to just listen to Craig's words of the separation of what goes where, of where things, like, I practice all of what you're doing, but it just came naturally, and I don't know why, but it just did. And so, anyhow, I there's two more questions I'd like to ask, and thank you for so much for showing up and being you, and giving myself and my audience the honor of your time. The first, if people are interested, they want to learn more, what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
Right. LinkedIn, I'm very prominent on LinkedIn. You'll see where I share my thoughts and ideas around the world, and obviously the work that I do. And the other one is Inspiring Great Leaders podcast. For me, I love to have conversations with different people around the world. Some of those people, many people may not ever get the chance to access, or don't know how to access those people. And so I like to have those conversations with other people. That is kind of my happy place, where I'm able to ask questions and allow people to share things they've never shared before. I know you're on the podcast, and most people will always share that you ask questions, like I ask questions that no one else asks. So I like to be able to help people find more about themselves, but then to utilize that to help other people.
Yeah. And by the way, thanks. I was honored to be on your podcast. So given where this conversation went, and what we talked about, is there a question that you feel I should have asked you, or is there a question that you'd like me to ask you now that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah. What does it mean to be high performing that no one talks about?
Ooh. Oh, that's a great question. I'm so glad you thought of it for me. Um, Please, Craig, what does it mean to be high performing that people don't talk about?
It's about having a relentless pursuit for something without being ruthless or reckless. And so when we look at this in regards to everyone here is a leader, everyone that in this planet is a leader. You lead people, you influence people. Some may have it as a role, whereas other people, it may not even be known that you are leading people. And I want you to realize that 99% of the people that you influence and lead in this world, you will never ever speak to. You will never speak to. And so having that a conscious awareness of the importance of being relentless in something, because if you want to be high performing, you need drive. You need to be driven towards something. You need a focus. You need a vision towards what that is going to be. And that doesn't mean that you work 24/7 in it. It doesn't mean that you are driving yourself to a space of total exhaustion. No. That means that you need to, what I talked about, the energy management before of the schedule, focus, and invest in your energy, you need to wrap that around your relentless pursuit of excellence. And so that's so, so important to understand. But we need to do that without being ruthless. And so what is ruthless? Ruthless is around taking no prisoners. So ruthless is around making sure that it doesn't affect other people or yourself in a negative way, right? So how can you be relentless in pursuit of something without affecting other people? But then also making sure that you're not reckless. And reckless is careless of the consequences. So to be high performing, we need to take risks, but we need to take risks that don't have negative consequences on someone else, on yourself, on the planet, etc. And so when I look at high performing people, they have this relentless drive. And I've seen some people done some amazing things but they've also been ruthless or even ruthless and reckless. And to me, I feel you can achieve amazing things in this world and be really high performing with being relentless without being ruthless or reckless. However, there is one instance where I'm not sure they would have achieved what they did, and that's the Chicago Bulls. I'm not sure that Michael Jordan could have won 6 titles without being ruthless or reckless as part of being relentless. They just weren't the cattle to achieve what they did without that specific aspects. When I look at Phil Jackson, he was more in that relentless space. He wasn't so ruthless or reckless from what I can see. And I don't know him personally, but from what we could see with Michael Jordan, he had those. Someone like Elon Musk is an interesting one. So I admire Elon for what his crazy vision and his drive and his determination to do something that no one else has done, to change the way we think about things and do things and create something. Like, I'm fascinated by that. As a human being, as a leader, not so. In a way that, he is relentless, but he is quite often ruthless and reckless in the way. So for instance, ruthless in the fact that his children don't speak to him. I think he's on to his 3rd marriage. Many of his employees have openly shared that they don't actually like him, but they are still there. And so when he talked about I think it was Tesla earlier this year, where he said that unless you are in the office 5 days a week and you are working longer hours, you're not wanted anymore. Like, just leave. And so that may suit. So in a way that is reckless of human people, like in the way they behave, but also it is careless of the consequences of what can happen to those people, that kind of 5 to 10% of people that thrive on that crazy dream and will do whatever they can to be a part of it, right? There are people who thrive in that, but it's the responsibility of the leader to manage that person energy-wise, because what is the collateral damage 5, 10, 20 years down the track when those people are burnt out, mental fatigue, chronic fatigue, mental health issues, because of the overloading of the brain, which cannot sustain that level for a long term. So I would love to have a conversation with Elon Musk to see how he could shift the way he does things, because I want to see him continue to change the world and see what's possible. But how can you do that without being ruthless or reckless?
I love that. As a matter of fact, that's currently one of my goals too. I've got a company I'm advising it's the visual cortex of AI, and Elon plans to spend $1 billion on a particular chipset, and this company can do it at a very interesting. We'll just say this company can do today what other companies can't. So I want that conversation as well, Craig. Hey, that was a great answer to that question and a spectacular interview. And I want to say thank you.
Welcome.
So listen, if you're listening or you're watching, this is now your opportunity to spread some cred dust. Write down your notes, share this with your friends. This will be one of those interviews I share with others, particularly those that are newer parents, those that are introverts, and who want to do good by the world. So I will absolutely be sharing this myself. I'm going to say, Craig, thanks so much again for joining us. And I want to thank all of you for spreading some cred dust, keeping this thing going. And I look forward to seeing you at the next episode of Leaders Living Their Values. Take care, everyone. Bye now.